It's no secret that the default config for CSGO is terrible. Luckily, you can fully customize it to your liking, and I'll show you guys how to do just that. So first of all, let's start with the launch options. Right click on CSGO, go to properties, and this is super important. If you're just going to be playing Valve servers, you don't have to type anything in, but if you are going to be playing Faceit on 128 tick servers, do this. Dash tick rate space 128. If you want the game to load up a little bit quicker, do dash novid. If you're not going to be using a controller at all, do dash nojoy. If you have a really good computer with a really good CPU, you can do dash high, which basically increases the CPU priority. So your CPU will work a little bit harder and it potentially could push up more frames. But for a lot of people, this won't really make a difference. And it actually can cause some instability. So just try it out. If it works for you, then awesome. If not, then just turn it off. If you play on a high refresh rate monitor, do dash refresh, and then you can do 144, 165, 240. But for me, I play on a 360 hertz monitor, so I do 360. One other command you can do is plus FPS underscore max 0. This uncaps the frame rate from 400 to unlimited, depending on how good your computer is. And those are the most important launch options. So this next part is for people with NVIDIA graphics cards. You want to go to the NVIDIA control panel, right click on your desktop, show more options, NVIDIA control panel. You want to go to adjust image settings with preview. Then you take the slider and put it all the way on performance. And then you go to manage 3D settings. We're going to add CSGO as a program. And then image sharpening, you want to turn this off. Put ambient occlusion on performance. For gamma correction, you want to have it on. Vertical sync off. Triple buffering off. Threaded optimization auto. Texture filtering high performance. Power management mode, prefer maximum performance. For low latency mode, normally you'd want to put this on, but if you have a really good computer, you can put it on ultra. For G-Sync, because it adds a little bit of latency, it's really not worth it for Counter-Strike. Next up, go to adjust desktop size and position. And if you want to play on a stretch resolution, put it on full screen, but if you're just going to be playing native res, leave it on aspect. This one is just personal preference. You go to adjust desktop color settings and then put digital vibrance up to 80, and this makes all the colors pop so much better. Do you want the game to look like this, or do you want it to look like this? Digital vibrance is a game changer. But now it's time to hop in game. What is this crosshair? Let's lower the volume because it's way too loud. 10-second volume. Let's leave that on 5%. Death camera 0. Okay, I think we're good. MVP volume 30. I need a better crosshair, dude. I mean, actually, zoom it out all the way. Rotating, yes. Centers the player, no. Okay, there we go. Now we can see the entire map. VoIP positional, nope. Play game audio and background, it doesn't really matter too much. 5.1 surround sound, absolutely. And then we want to go to video, how to troll all the bots. So obviously, it's not really the best thing to play on like absolute max settings. You can do it if you want. I mean, it does make the game look pretty good, but it's not super necessary. But what you do want to do is you want to turn off motion blur, turn off VSync, put texture filtering mode on bilinear. That's usually pretty solid. 1080p is the most ideal for most monitors. Hold up. I need a decent crosshair real quick. So here, give me classic static. Let's get rid of the center dot. Let's make it a little bit smaller, make the gap smaller, and make it slightly thicker. And we have ourselves a decent crosshair now. Game instructor messages, you want to turn this off, you want to lower the ping, and you do want to enable the developer console. Those are super, super important. All right. Well, you have 1 HP. Let's see if he can clutch the round all by himself. Also, I'm not really liking the whole HUD layout. Like, I don't like it on the top. I prefer it on the bottom. You got this, Garrett. You got this, man. 1 HP and a dream. 1 jungle. I'm not going to get the kill. I'm just going to let Garrett do everything himself. I think I know where they are. Oh, he actually got one. But then he got taken out. Nope. All right, we won. Now let's go adjust the scoreboard. Follow grenade key. Was mini scoreboard style. Just show player count. Absolutely. And then put it on the bottom of the screen. All right, that is looking much, much, much cleaner. Holy sh! What was that? But I also do need to adjust the old view model. Okay, FOV 90. That makes it look like this, so you get a much wider field of view. Global shadow quality, you always want to put this on high. Texture detail doesn't really matter too much. Effect detail doesn't matter. Shader detail, always on very high. Boost player contrast, absolutely. Multi-core rendering, yes. There you go. Those are the most important settings. $70. Dude, no. The HUD position as well, you can make it super small, and this basically makes your... Oh no, not a big fan of this. It's kind of in the middle of the screen. Okay, so let's put that back. So now we're going to buy a deagle. So now I can reposition to this spot. Another one. So that's kind of the scuffed way to set up your config. Now I'll show you guys a much easier way. So there's a couple different maps. All right, so first of all, we have Crash's view model generator. Sure, you can go into the console and do all the commands, but this kind of gives you more of a visual representation of what it'll do. So what I usually do is I use the M7 view model, and then I put the FOV on max. And this basically looks pretty good. And then for the movement, I like to put it on the lowest, because when you have it on high, it's kind of distracting. And then when you have it on low, like the gun is just, it stays in the same position. It's not distracting at all. And it just works, at least for me. There's this weird gangster view model that looks super scuffed, but it's so funny. There's a Quake one, which is kind of like Quake. You got Trilux, you got 3 Clicks Phillip, which this one isn't really the best for inspecting skins. So that's why I go with M7 FOV max, lowest view model distance. This is the view model that I've used for years. And in my opinion, it's the best for inspecting skins, because even with the op, when you inspect it, you can see the entire thing, which is super nice. With this one, you can't even see the entire op skin, even when you're inspecting. So not super ideal. So the next one is the config generator. And this one makes it so easy to set up. And then because we actually do have a crosshair map, I would completely skip the crosshair generator right here. I mean, sure, it is cool and all, and you can kind of come up with cool little crosshairs, but the other one is so much better. View model though, this is absolutely important. I just ruined my view model. But you can change the color of your HUD. You have all these different options. Personally, I like red because it looks pretty cool. Purple's pretty sick as well. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna stick with purple because of the gloves. You can change the vertical gap. It all comes down to personal preference. I think this looks better than this, but that just might be a me thing. Oh, that's transparency. Oh, also, yeah, transparency is pretty useful too. You can kind of, you don't have to put it on like maximum or minimum. You can kind of find like a good middle ground where you have a little bit of opacity, but it's not super distracting. You can put it on the top or the bottom, which I showed you how to do. It's super simple. In my opinion, I think having the numbers on is super good. And then for the HP/ammo style, you have this one, which is more simplistic, and then you also have one that's more over the top. And actually, personally, because I use shadow play, because I have a little indicator in the bottom right of my screen, this one actually works better for me. Colored gun icons, I have no idea what this does. For the radar though, you absolutely, you want it to be big, but not too big. Like, you know, just find like a good middle ground for you. And you want to zoom it out enough to where you can see the entire map. I mean, it's all personal preference. I personally prefer rotation. It just depends like what you prefer. And then centered, I'd say turn this off so you can see more of the map, because you want to be able to see the entire map at any given time, because it just makes it so much easier to know where enemies are. But let's go over here to the recommended settings. You can use these if you want, but I just kind of like to make everything myself. For binds though, absolutely. So there's been a lot of controversy in tournaments, like specifically about like having binds that can do multiple actions. Because if you have just V, like jump and throw it, a lot of pros would consider it to be cheating and it wouldn't really be tournament legal. So a good way to get around that. And actually this command actually does just that. So I would recommend just typing in bind V minus attack in the console. And this will allow you to basically press the spacebar and V at the exact same time, and it gives you 100% consistent jump throws. Because if you don't have a bind and you try to do it, it'll never land in the same spot twice. And then jump on scroll, absolutely, you want to have this on. Like if you jump with the spacebar, it is so much harder to B-hop versus having it binded to up and down on the mouse pad, on the mouse scroll wheel. Because basically all you have to do is just scroll your scroll wheel and just keep on jumping. So you do want to turn on clear decals, and I usually like to put this on mouse 3. See how there's all this blood on the ground and it can be a little distracting? Like it can be a little bit harder to see an enemy from like super far away. That does not do it justice, but you just press the button and it clears it all and you're good to go. And of course, when it comes to your crosshair, you can obviously customize it using this menu, which is pretty good. Like back in the day before this existed, making a crosshair was such a pain. If you want an easier way to do it or a more visual way to do it, you want to use Crash's crosshair generator. And much like a lot of these other maps, the teams are not exactly up to date. Basically, you can use any of these crosshairs you want. So let's just go for like Hooksies, for example. It's kind of small. So style 1 is kind of like the default style for CSGO. It's not super ideal, but it works for some people. Some it sure loves it. There's style 2, which is pretty much the same, but it's more dynamic. But I think for this, you're better off having like a smaller gap, but it can be a little distracting, obviously. There's also style 2, which is classic dynamic, and then you basically know exactly when you're going to be fully accurate. Style 3 is kind of more intense, where like if you're fully accurate, the crosshair kind of lines up perfectly, but then if you're not, it can be really hard to actually line it up for when you go for your next shot. So personally, I'm not a huge fan of these kind of crosshairs. And then there's style 4, which is, you know, classic static, and it's basically a crosshair that never moves. So if you want something that, you know, 100% consistent, this is definitely the way to go. However, though, I would go for a smaller gap, not too much of a gap though. Go for that. The outline's totally fine. Thickness, let's make it a little bit thinner. This looks kind of bad. Let's just use Shush. We can add a little bit of an outline to it. Not too much, of course. Okay, that's not too bad. Basically, you just want a crosshair that you're comfortable with. You can also change the T shape. So if you kind of like these kind of crosshairs, you can do that. But personally, I like it when it's a regular crosshair. Just mess around as much as you need to and just try to figure out a crosshair that you personally like yourself. So yeah, just set up your config to your personal liking, and there you go. Thanks for watching.